Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Captain Leung, and welcome to another 655 podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the really good theme of values. Coming back from last week, where we had Captain Z and Major Dowler on the show, where we talked about grit. Hopefully, that show was really useful to you guys because I feel getting as many different perspectives as possible is really interesting, and it gave us a chance to interview two really, really influential people in the squadron. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you are joining us again, hopefully you've been watching the rest of the series. They're in a playlist on my YouTube channel. And as always, I'm going to introduce some of our guests here. Today, we are going to bring in a little bit of a different dynamic because typically I'm the host, but today Warrant Officer Chan is going to be the host, so she's going to take the big frame. So I'm going to switch the frame here, and I'm going to unmute them. There's Chan, and that's our featured guest, OCdt Phan. Why don't you guys say hello here?
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
What's up?
What's up? So thank you for joining the show. Once again, great to have Warren Chan on the podcast, but especially for OCdt Phan. Because one, I haven't seen you for a while, Phan. It's been really, really long. You must be really busy with work to be. And sorry, go ahead.
It's been busy. It's been busy. Coronavirus is a weird time, but I'm trying to hold on.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I know that especially for this year, you've been a really good resource for a lot of the seniors here. You've really taken to the part of training and helping our seniors be better seniors. So love to get you on the show to get your insight on a bunch of different things, especially for shaping our NCO mentality. Understanding that September might be weird. We're losing a lot of seniors more and more each day, every single week that I get a message saying like, hey, this person's not coming back. Hey, this person's not coming back. So we need to do our best to get you guys trained up with the right mindset to be powerful leaders right from the get. Kind of what this. Chan, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well. It was busy because I had some exams, but I'm sure all students are struggling with schoolwork from their teachers.
Yeah. When does school end around the same time regularly? So like June 20?
Yeah, I think my teachers were told that they had to teach until June 19th, I think.
Incredible.
And then, and then I think for my school also, they're bringing in the grads to walk the theater stage in their cap and gown.
Wow.
In
Interesting.
groups of like 10. So, yeah.
I mean, at least you don't lose out on that experience, but it's going to be weird.
It's not going to be as nice because we don't get the Chan Center venue and everything.
Oh,
but yeah, at least we get something.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely a special time that unfortunately. But at least you get something. And I mean, with everything that's going on, it kind of makes. So let's talk a little bit about our topic today here. I'm gonna switch the view again, just so that you can see hard. Sometimes it doesn't load properly, so tap it a little bit. Especially for the people in the audience. Like as always, if you have any questions or comments or things you want to add, absolutely put it into the chat button or hit that chat because I'm the one viewing the chat and I'll feed your questions for us. As well as because our audience isn't large today because I messed up on the notification. If you know that if there's other seniors who would be interested or they were looking for the show, make sure to send out the link to them. That way we can get as many on the show or they can watch this. Like I said, today is values here, and I'm gonna pass the floor to Warrant Officer Chan, and I'm gonna skip through these participation and podcast rules because you'll know that. Let's get into finding your values. Take it away.
Yeah, so in the very beginning of this podcast thing, one of our episodes we did touch on values and how to link that to finding your why. So, a question you can think about while we talk about this is what's important to you and why? And I think I was asked this question on um, I was applying to UBC last December, and I think that was one of the questions, and it was so vague. But I found a way to kind of incorporate my values into that, and I think that that paragraph was one of my best written answers to the application. But while you think about that, we're going to talk a little bit about how we find our values. So um, a while back, we did send out a worksheet, and it was basically a sheet full of values and a bunch of different words that you might not have even known the meaning to. But essentially, what we did with that is we filtered out what what meant the most to you, and then um, kind of that was the starting point of finding your values. And then I know Captain Leung also brought up his love hate comparison. If you wanted to touch a little bit or summarize that idea.
Sure. So the love hate relationship is basically a call to actively observe and take that observation and reflect on how you would approach it. And the more times you can run those case scenarios or observe those scenarios in general, you get a better establishment of what you care about, why you care about it, and how you would operate in general. Because not everyone gets the opportunity, especially in cadets, to be like a leader in multiple situations. But everybody has an opinion about how something went or how someone does something. And although obviously you don't want to be super pessimistic or super judgmental, but if you use what you see as a template, you can make a decision of why and why not you like it. And the bigger, uh, uh, the bigger dive you take into those reasons why, the more you find out about it. That's the love hate relationship.
And that's a really good strategy to use um, in your everyday life, especially since there's so many situations in cadets. How about Officer Cadet Fan? Would you like to tell us a little bit more about how you find your values?
So one of the ways that I found my values is just basically doing a lot of different things, whether that be in life or in cadets. Kind of like when you're in high school, when you're in like a lower level, they make you try everything out so that you can understand what you like and what you dislike. And then when you kind of get older, you get to choose like different courses that you enjoy. So something that I did when I was in cadets and also just in life as well is just try a bunch of different things that I've never done before. When I was like really young, like between like the age of like 5 to 12, my parents were just like throw me into a bunch of random classes, throw me a bunch into like things that I didn't even know that I wanted to do. Like one day I would go to some random drawing class or something and I found out that I hated it. Or the next week I would go to like a skating class and then found out like I would enjoy it. So try different things uh, and just see if you like it. Because if you enjoy it, then you're gonna do more of it, and you're actually going to realize how much that you enjoyed that one thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember one time my mom put me, her, and my brother into a Chinese painting class. And then now we have like three different frames of our paintings, with mine being the worst, obviously. But yeah, try a bunch of different things. You get a feel for what you enjoy and what you don't really like.
Did we all do
Uh,
Chinese painting class?
I did not do Chinese painting. I did a random drawing class. I only went to it for like one day. I feel like I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I absolutely hated it. Like I just could not draw for like my life. Like if they told me I had to draw something or my arm would be cut off, I'd choose the arm getting cut off. That's
oh
how
my
bad it
god.
was.
hmm I remember using my paintbrush instead of like painting. I was actually coloring in areas that I I outlined. So much for Chinese painting. If we move on to our next slide, um, I believe it's putting it into action at cadets. So uh, after knowing what your values are, how can you apply that into the cadet program specifically? And we'll talk about cadets right now, but later on in the podcast, we'll talk about how to put this into action in your life as well. So to start off, Can we flip one more slide?
All right, 1 second. Back.
It's okay.
Flip.
Yeah, so another question for you to think about is what are your interests? So if you want to type into the little chat box, what kind of interest do you have? And this doesn't have to apply directly to cadets, because we're going to talk about how you can implement the skills you have or the experience you have or your hobbies into the cadet program. So let us know what your interests are in the chat box. But let's ask our officers here, what are some interests you have? And um, if you have already, how have you applied that into the 655 realm? And we'll start off with Captain Leung.
Um, I think for for how long my cadet and officer career is, I've been able to um integrate a lot of my interests into the cadet program, especially 655. It's 655 has been my test baby for a lot of my own for a lot of my own hobbies. Just straight up. When I came to 655, the mentality that the squadron had, the image that they had, the programs that they were running were very, very different, and with a lot of work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, to be quite honest, of myself and a lot of other officers and some very, very, very cool, hardworking cadets, we were able to do a lot of things. Since there's so many different examples, I'll just choose one. The public affairs team, the Panko team, was spawned from not only one of my interests, but I found that there was a lot of cadets out there who weren't really into drill, weren't really into the band, and or first aid. I think the band especially was a huge part of 655 years ago, before Panko started, where um if you weren't part of the band, you didn't really feel like you had a place within the unit. You might have been able to find a home in some other team that might have helped out, but in terms of finding a place and finding somewhere that you can contribute, if you weren't an instructor or if you sucked at instructing, if you sucked at drill, if you didn't go into the band, you were kind of and you weren't a pilot, you're kind of lost, right? So I had one of those cadets who didn't really find their place into anything, and I had a conversation with her, talking to what her interests were, and she said photography. And she said there's a couple of other cadets who are into photography as well. I'm like, okay, well, photography is one of my interests, and I'll take it one step further. Instead of creating a photo club in cadets, I'm a big believer in using skills and hobbies to make money. That's really what it is. It's entrepreneurship is something I studied in university. So what I would really want for cadets back in the day is that if they took their skill set and made a portfolio that was worth showing off to, let's say, a university application, art school, or even to get hired. With that concept, we took just plain taking photos to making videos to social media marketing to campaign marketing to event marketing, which is what Panko is now. It's taking my hobby of marketing, art, and that level of creativity and implementing it into a program in the squadron. Not solely my idea, but it's something that I love, and that those cadets who helped me build it. It started off with 2, it grew to a team of 15, and now it's probably back down to 3 or 4 cadets. But I know that a lot of other cadets help with paying. It's a very interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like Panko was also a big thing, because it actually allowed the cadets to interact with the technology and everything. I remember when I was younger in the program, we had 655 Ask Me Anything. Was that
Yeah,
a
yeah,
thing?
yeah. It's what I
Yeah,
forced
so
Juliet Wong and Erica Buban to run for me. That was funny.
yeah,
They were not happy.
it was fun. I remember doing it in a very small hallway, and everyone was raising their hands to go and participate in that. But that was awesome. How about you, Officer Cadet Fan? What are some of your interests, and have you ever in your cadet career or your officer career kind of implemented that into the program?
Uh, well, when I was in cadets first, the thing that I did a lot when I was a cadet was basically a lot of drill. Like every summer camp I went to was a drill course after GT. Yeah, every summer camp I went to after GT was a drill course. So that's what I did a lot when I was a cadet, and that was something definitely that I was interested in. Not just because of the drill aspect, but basically a lot because of like the instructional and the leadership aspect, which actually led me basically to be more interested into the field that I'm actually in now because I do really like interacting with like different types of people. I really enjoy interacting and like listening to different people's stories, and I felt like um, in cadets, like when you're in front of people, you get to just see a different story like on a parade square. So that's something that I found really interested is that my interest came from cadets, and then I translated that into my personal life. So a big part of like what I do now is because of what I found through cadets.
That's a really good point you bring up because my next question was actually going to be what was the most important skill or a skill that you really value now that you got from the program. So would you say that would be maybe the most important skill you got from the program?
I wouldn't say that doing drill was an important skill because it's absolutely useless, like absolutely useless when you turn like 19 or 20. But basically, being in front of other people and learning how to be confident in front of other people, that was the biggest skill that I learned from cadets. And just taking that and instructing and being a leader and learning how to deal with others, that was like the biggest skill I've learned from cadets. And I learned that because I did so many like drill courses, which is an odd thing because most people dislike drill.
Mm, that's an interesting way to see drill because for me I always went to band courses, but I think the interaction with people is still there. And yeah, definitely confidence is a really big thing. I think most, if not all, cadets get out of the program and into their real lives. But how about you, Captain Leung? What was the most valuable skill you got from the program as a cadet?
I think the most valuable skill that I got out of cadets is presenting, is teaching. It comes out a lot in a lot of different aspects of it because teaching teaches you to plan, prepare, and be theatrical, which is in my realm. I'm a care manager at a tech company. The whole thing is about delivering, performing, having the emotional intelligence to deal with sometimes great, fantastic customers or sometimes super hostile customers. And it's the same thing when you're controlling a classroom. I teach the same lessons that I teach to you, cadets, as instructors, that I teach adults at my company. And if I didn't have training and teaching under my belt, there would be no way that I'd be as successful as I am in my growth in my company. 100%.
Hmm. Yeah, I think cadet program is really about the interactions you make with other people, and also the like the self growth you get from all the years of experience you get. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I feel like a lot of it also applies to your personal um, your personal careers as well. So I'd like to ask, what what do you feel what do you feel is the most important skill at your personal workplace, and how is that mirrored in the cadet program,
I'm gonna
maybe
switch
as an
that
officer?
screen. Sorry.
Okay, so what was the most important skill at your workplace, and then how does that like connect with how you present yourself as an officer to the cadets now? We'll start with Officer Cadet Fan.
So in my personal life, my career, basically right now, I work in an immigration detention center. So basically, people just who have broken immigration law, they get housed there. And the most important skill that I've learned in cadets that I translate to my like personal career is how to talk to people. And that's when you first become a staff cadet, or when you first become like 16, 17, you have some sort of power. A lot of cadets, they get really like power hungry, and they start to like either they yell a lot, or they basically they look at what their other seniors did and they just emulate that like crazy. And before, there was a lot of people who yelled a lot, and I learned really quickly, not really quickly, I learned kind of slowly actually, that yelling at everyone doesn't work. And that's something I use in my everyday life, is because every person that I deal with is different. And for some people, if I yell at them, they'll respond to it like right away. But if some people I yell at them, they're gonna like not care, and they're gonna be even more angry. So the most important thing I learned is how to treat everyone differently, and that every person basically responds to different things differently. Like if you instruct one person, they're going to be different than another person. It's the same thing as instruction, right? Some people are visual learners, some people learn by doing things, and some people just pick up things like really like instantaneously. So everyone is different, and learning just how to deal with people, that's like the biggest thing I learned through cadets.
Mm, that's a thank you for sharing that. That's a good point. Um, how about Captain Leung?
You know what? It's a very interesting question because there's a lot of things that I feel like if you ask the question reverse, what in cadets, like the original question, what in cadets did you bring to your workplace? I have a lot more examples of that just because of like how similar the role is. Um,
Mhm.
However, let's say from my work, I think the biggest thing um, is probably it's tough because a lot of the things I learned in cadets as an officer or just cadets in general and brought it over. Let me think.
Mm,
Um, I think a day-to-day skill that I try to teach is probably a it's gonna sound weird, but an adult attitude. It's a way of being able to present yourself, the tone of your voice, and like it's a whole persona that you take on in the professional world that is really hard to teach kids who are in cadet, because especially with um, a unit so large for ours, a lot of cadets like to hide behind each other a lot, and one of the biggest things that compliments that I've got from other officers about, let's say, my staff cadets when we go with staff, is that our cadets are always loud, like very determined, and they're very driven for what they want to do. And then like the skill set falls separate, but like they're very passionate. I think that's the easiest way to say it. And I think teaching passion in that sense is a skill that I took from the workplace, and being able to represent your passion properly. And that's the one I like to teach cadets. Because if you are unable to represent the values, if you're not able to speak about them properly, if you're not able to present yourself a certain way, you lose a lot of credibility as an adult. Um, and I'm
mm,
using this and painting with a very large and wide paintbrush, but like a lot of quiet people in general don't get noticed. A lot of people who like to work in the background, who don't know how to ask for things, who don't like interacting with people, don't like the politics of things, who are afraid of that, they don't usually get a lot of opportunity. And if we can teach cadets to take up that persona, to get those opportunities to ask and not be afraid, that's the skill of cadets.
And I think the reason I wanted to ask those questions to both of you is because a lot of the times it's not just like maybe hobbies like photography and videography we can bring into the program, but it's also about what you value and what you're passionate about, and um, bringing what you've learned outside or inside of cadets into the program and sharing that with the people around you. And just like simply this podcast started because we wanted to share kind of what we've learned in the development years, and then passing that on to other people, and like kind of ripple affecting everyone in the squadron. We're hoping that that to happen, and I feel like if you have those visions or passions or values that you want to share with people, go ahead and do that in the squadron as well. So um, another question to our audience here is, what are your personal values? So earlier I asked, what are your interests? Now I'm asking you what you actually value. And these can be like um, phrases or words. But personally, I think my three words that would describe my values would be passion, care, and growth. So those things I value because of maybe personal experience or opportunities that I've seen out there. So this leads to our next question, and the audience can also help us answer this question. But what opportunities do you think the cadet program has to offer? And there are very big answers to this question and very small answers. But go ahead, Officer Cadet Phan. What opportunities do you think in cadets are helpful or valuable?
Wow. That's like a really big question because there's so many different things in cadets that we can grab from that we use in our personal lives. So there's also like physical things and things that are not really physical, but one of the biggest things I can think of in cadets that a lot of people use is learning how to, like Captain Leung said, is learning how to instruct. And I think we know a decent amount of like people who were cadets that became like teachers because that's such a like they go so hand in hand. Like what other program can you be like 15, 16 and instruct other people that are like 12, 13, 14? Like there's no other program that I can think of or that I know of, maybe because I've only done cadets, but this is like the only program where you can learn something and then the next year teach that same thing. And if you make a mistake, you'll be taught on how to do a better job at that. And like that's a great opportunity that a lot of people don't realize is that in cadets, you're like free to make as many mistakes as you can because like even though you don't realize it and a lot of people are really nervous, for me personally, I kind of want cadets to make mistakes so that they can learn. Like I don't want a perfect cadet because if you're perfect, then there's really nothing to build upon. And also it's really hard to be a perfect cadet. So like make the mistake, learn, and like do whatever you need to do, instruct, create a new event, do whatever you need to do, make the mistake and have us help you out. Because when you're an adult, when you're like older and you make mistakes, it can be a lot more harder to bounce back from that mistake. But in cadets, we just teach you how to get better and you'll be a better leader in the future.
Yeah, that's a huge emphasis, especially in the program because of how young the cadets come in and then how many years they have to develop. So, yeah, there's a huge community of people trying to help all the cadets out. So that's really nice. Captain Leung, how about you?
Oh, I'm muted. Ha! Thank you,
Did this
Lang.
happen last time as well?
Yeah, I don't press the button. I just use my mic because there's background noise elsewhere. So I want to bring up that we do have some pretty good comments here, and I do want to bring it up. Captain Richards brought up that there are so many different learning styles, and being able to recognize this is a powerful tool. It's kind of appropriate for this topic because in cadets there are so many different cadets, not only in just different theme, but they all learn different. They all care about things different, and the more observant you are to these learning styles, and the better you're able to handle each of these different situations. It's a clear opportunity to not only get interaction with just the people in front of you, but the more interaction that you have with a different person, the more educated as a person you get. So it's a really important. We have a comment from Leung here that says receiving criticism and reflecting on actions is a really good opportunity. She says, or they say, it's like OCdt fans point on building upon yourself and getting better. And yeah, I would agree with that absolutely. That looking for feedback is a great opportunity for growth and self development in cadets. To answer this question a little bit myself, where do I see opportunities in cadets? I think it's really hard to answer, especially if you're watching this podcast. I say that you already know how to take upon opportunity. Like, this is already an opportunity that you chose to spend time to dedicate yourself to be a little bit better for the future, right? So you're already switched on. You already turned, like, you've already been turned online. But there's a lot of cadets who don't know how to make, like, that switch isn't turned on yet. They're still powered off. They're still on autopilot. They don't think in terms of opportunity. They think in terms of, like, I deserve this, for a lack of a better term, right? They're a little bit more entitled. I think a lot of opportunities in cadets show in the terms of a choice of, are you entitled to this, or did you work for it? And in terms of 655, a lot of opportunities that we have are given to you freely because I believe a free market makes leaders. So in terms of, hey, does anybody want to lead this? Or, hey, like, you have the chance to fill every weekend as long as you follow these certain rule sets. Like, hey, convince an officer to do something. Hey, get some buy-in from your fellow people, and then someone will help you. I think our event program, the way that we do small party events and large scale events, pitching an event, writing your memo, doing your op order, convincing people it's a good idea, getting an officer on board. I think that opportunity, cadets, is really powerful because that's almost picture perfect of real life, where you have an idea, nobody cares about it, nobody believes you, and it's your job to try to push it. And a lot of that success comes into, hey, it's not your idea anymore. The more people that you involve, the more people you talk to, it becomes our idea, and then we are successful versus just you. So that's, I think, the event program that we have is a really big opportunity.
I agree with that because my answer to this question was going to be how there's such a big network of people around you that you can speak to people your age or people older than you or adults or people younger than you, and I feel like being able to get those perspectives from people and learn from that is very important. So um, getting out there to talk to people and talk to officers that aren't as scary as you may think are they're really good opportunities in cadets, uh, and we see it a lot. We see it happening a lot, but obviously it's a choice for you to make to reach out to speak to anybody, any warrants or any of your seniors out there. So yeah, that's pretty much a wrap on how to put it into action in cadets. And then now we're going to move on to how to put it into action in life. So we have a beautiful picture of somebody flying a frisbee. Probably a Panko person took that photo, but putting it into action in life is not very different, but we'd like to touch upon it a little bit more. So, my first question is, what is a past experience that shaped your values today? So, whether that be in your childhood, teenage years, or even now, what is something that you experienced, um, and because of that experience, you value something today? So, I'll start off. One time I was dancing. I used to do ballet, and then I felt like my knee shift and my knee bone was like cracking. I don't know what was happening, and then
That's
I
really
had
scary.
to go through years of yeah. It's kind of I don't really know what happened there, but I had to go through years of like physiotherapy and um driving very far to see, um, professionals help me fix my knee. But because of that experience and getting to know the people who were helping me heal my knee, um, I actually became interested in like the anatomy and everything like that. So I ended up taking like biology courses at school, and then I also did like a project in grade 10 where I had to like reach out to somebody who could be my mentor, and I actually ended up at a prosthetic clinic. So I saw like a bunch of prosthetics. Some were like hands, some were arms, some were just the foot, or some were just the leg. But there's so many opportunities out there, and I feel like that experience of getting injured and having to go through the healing process actually helped me find this passion. So now I'm actually going to go to school for that next year. And yeah, that's an experience that shaped what I value today, is caring about the people in the community.
That sounds really painful.
Yeah, I don't
It
envy that
wasn't it
whatsoever.
wasn't as painful as you might think, but
But,
it
but
was just
at least you found something cool, right?
yeah. Um Go ahead, Officer Cadet Fan. What do you have to share?
Uh, the thing that I learned the most in cadets and that I put into action like basically every day in life is while I was in cadets, I failed a lot. Is that
Yeah, you did.
when I was yeah, I failed a lot and a lot, and a big part of that is because of myself. Because when I was younger, I don't think I've actually changed much since I was younger. I just am a little more disciplined. But when I was younger, I had like basically zero filter. I was basically like pretty obnoxious, and because of that, it put me into opportunities or it put me into positions where I didn't get any opportunities. And when I really did start caring and when I really did want to like improve myself, a lot of people already didn't take me seriously, and because of that, I failed a lot into not getting what I wanted. And those experiences shaped me into realizing that a lot of these experiences and a lot of these things that we get in cadets, they're not always about ourselves, and not everything that we do in cadets is about ourselves. Like for us as officers who come into the program, uh, we don't do this because we get paid to do it, or we don't do this because we want whatever benefits. We do this because we legitimately care, and because a lot of us, I would say like most of us, are extremely selfless to the program, and we really want to make a difference for basically like the community that we live in. And that's the biggest thing that I learned, is that when I failed so much, I realized that it's not about myself, and I realized that a lot of these failures that I've basically lived into is because it's how we help and shape others. Like even though I fail, it doesn't mean that everyone else around me has failed. Just because something's like bad has happened to me, it doesn't mean I should bring negativity into my workplace or I should bring negativity to others people's lives. So that's like the biggest thing that I've learned, is that fail a lot and you'll learn from it, and basically once you fail now, you'll basically be numb to it.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm muted again. Rookie mistake. Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up. I think also the way the cadet environment is structured, or even like in the workplace, is it really competitive out there in the workplace?
Yes. Yes.
I
I
mean,
would say
Yeah.
I think
So
it depends on what you're referring to as like how like what yeah I think it just depends on what you're talking about. Like, is it competitive to get a job? Is that your question, or
or like um getting like maybe promotions and stuff like that.
I would still say yes.
yeah, yeah. I I think I've been really fortunate, at least in my life, that um I feel like it's not like I've paid my dues, but I've failed quite a bit to the point where I know what I like, how to portray myself in a way where I can get these opportunities and make my own luck, I think is the best way to go about it. Um, I
Mm.
think getting promoted at a job is is easy if you know what you're doing. And it's the same thing with cadets, where it is easy to attain a promotion if you know what you're doing. And of course, like the actions to do so might take a long time. But in terms of easy, like the roadmap of how to get there is easy. It's just, are you willing to take those steps? And are you willing to put that level of work? And work might not just mean like actual work. It means networking. It means like after hours networking, work, or whatever. There's a lot of things that go into it. Every company is a little bit, but I think that like the roadmap to get yourself in the best position to get promoted is mathematically, the equation is easy.
Okay. That makes more sense.
I want to say that it's not that easy as Captain Leung says it is. Maybe because I'm like younger than him, but even though, for me personally, even though I know stuff, even though I know what I'm doing, I am still competing with everyone else. And actually, all the times, the promotion isn't based on if I know what I'm doing. It's based on if that person likes what I'm doing.
Right.
So that's what makes it really difficult as well, because I can be really good at my job. I can basically do everything perfectly. And if my boss or my supervisor or whoever's like basically ahead of me doesn't like me, like I'm not gonna get anything. That's just the reality of it. And the only way to like get out or to promote myself is by either getting a new job or waiting for a new boss to come in. So like in that sense, it can also be difficult. But when you talk about the initial question was like, is what easy? Sorry. Is promotions easy?
Oh, is getting a promotion easy? Yeah.
I still have to say that in cadets, like yes, it is pretty simple in cadets. Like you hit these guidelines and then you get promoted. But also in life, when you're an adult, not only are you competing in your like small little community, you're actually competing against basically everyone, either in your country or even all around the world, you could say, because now that everything's so digital, now that everything's basically online, anyone can apply to anything and can get that job even if they've never been there before. So with that, with that, things are getting a little more complicated. And like Captain Leung said earlier, just knowing things isn't the only thing you need to do. You need to be able to network. You need to be able to basically be a likable person to get promoted or to even get a job. Because if you're not, that's going to be extremely difficult. Because if you have a bad personality, if you don't know how to talk, if you don't know how to sell yourself in an interview, then unfortunately, like you're going to have to learn it. And if you're not going to be able to learn it, then it's going to be really, really difficult to get promoted or even get a decent job.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll touch more on this in the skills series next week, right?
I mean, like for your original question, when you said, what is a moment that shaped you in and like helped you go a little bit further, I think the reason why I have the opinion of getting a promotion, the equation is easy. Some of the work might be really hard. Some of the conditions of that promotion might be really difficult, but and out of your control. But in my mindset, you can control everything in your power to boost the amount of luck that you have to get a position. And the reason why I have that attitude is because of cadet. Actually, it's because when I personally went through cadets, I did not do well at all. I didn't get promoted until level 3, which was back in the day. It's not automatic. You have to take tests. You have to put in effort. You have to show face. You have to do all these nuanced things, political, non-political, skills-based, to get promoted. Like it was a lot more structured of a system, and it did in large depend on if people liked you, right? And in our cadet system right now, it's based on a system that, regardless if we like you or not, which is a good thing, you can get promoted. That's what it is. That is not real life, period. And the biggest shaping moment of my cadet career, that has helped me like grow as a person, was the day and the moment I got denied. And like for a cadet who was a full year younger. And the reason why is because I did everything I possibly could, skills wise, resume wise, to be the better candidate, but I was not like I was likable to the cadets, but I was not as likable to the officer, especially the one who made the decision. Like I had some good relationships with officers, but I'm pretty combative, even still. But it was at that point I realized that in what Phan has said, it's not about you, it's about your goal, right? So when I got denied chief, in my mind, I'm like, well, what am I doing now? Like, do I hit that? And I think every cadet hits this point, or any person should hit this point as fast as possible. And the when you hit this rock in front of you, where you decide to quit or continue, right? That's it. It's like you lost in a fighting game, and you have that countdown. Do you want to continue, or do you want to stop? Right? Once you get to that point, the earlier you get to the point, you become online. And it took me, with a very good cadet career, to be quite honest, after I got promoted, I did a lot of things as a cadet, but getting denied chief turned me online. In the fact that, like, I will never back down in trying to prove my leadership, not trying to prove like how effective I am, to have that hunger to succeed. If I wasn't denied at that point, I thought I deserved it. Looking back at it as an officer now, if I was looking at myself as a cadet, I'm like, yeah, this cadet is skilled, but I don't trust him. No. And that's really how the workplace is. And when I talk about promotion is easy, is when you get turned online, you know that, like, hey, if your boss says like, hey, we're gonna go out and just like after work and just get to know each other, do you want to come along? You don't say, oh, I have things to do after. No, you say yes. Right? If someone says like, hey, I have this extra project, I know it's not in your job scope, but I need someone to do it, you say, yeah, give it to me. Like, I don't know how to do it. I'll do my best, and I will work. And if you do those things, it not only proves your skill set and improves your skill set from just having the opportunity to do it, it shows your hunger. But lastly, it shows that you're willing to interact with them. A lot of employees are not willing to interact. And that's where I'm saying that, like, getting a promotion, realistically, is easy. The only things that hold you back is there an opportunity to be promoted? Sometimes that's not out there. And number two, do people like you? Those are the two things that you can't really control, kind of. Opportunity for promotion, 100% you can't control. Do people like you? You can't really control what other people think as much, but can you make yourself likable? Absolutely. Are you likable as a person naturally? Maybe not. Right? Do you effectively say like, hey, am I going to change my personality or change how I do things? And if you're stubborn, I'm going to use that word like very specifically. If you're stubborn and say like, nah, that's just me. As a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, 25, 27-year-old person, I know who I am and I'm never going to change. That's stupid. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back from the unwillingness to change.
I think you might have just answered my question, but I was thinking of asking like, what tactics or like what do you think is important to help you stand out from the competition? And I feel like that's often a question you get asked at like interviews and stuff, but maybe it's in the way you present yourself, or what do you feel like you need to show to stand out from the competitors or your competitors? Officer Cadet Phan.
That's honestly like really difficult because, like we said before, everything that you do, everything that is happening basically when you're wanting to get promoted, unfortunately, it's not up to you. Like, it's up to who's looking at you, and it's up to who judges you. And how do you stand out is that, like, for me it's different, and in cadets it's also different too. Because in cadets you be loud, and people will notice you like no matter what. If you're loud and you're a leader and like you're on like a parade square and you're like yelling at a cadet, you're gonna be noticed. That's how you can stand out like that, whether it be positively or negatively. Like you're gonna stand out. But like in the workplace, it's also different as well. So I can give you like another example about being likable. Is that this actually happened really recently? Is that yesterday I was talking with my manager and he was basically describing a scenario to us and he said something wrong and I called him out on it. And then he basically did not like the fact that I called him out, even though I was correct and like on paper I was correct. He basically like flipped out because I called him out, and because like I work at 605, like a lot of us adults, we're pretty used to like just saying stuff and not being personally offended. But when I did that, I realized at the moment that I messed up, because at the end of the day, even though if I'm correct or even though an employee is correct, it's how your boss or your supervisor views who you are to be able to get promoted. Like I was correct.
Impact, not
but
intent, right?
Exactly. Like I was correct, but because I called him out in front of every other employee, he felt ashamed and embarrassed, which made him angry. And he actually, it's really funny because he said he's going to give me a surprise next week when I come back to work. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm fired, but like, unfortunately, everything that you do, even though you're like very qualified, even though you have a good skill set, even though you know how to, you try to be likable, a lot of these times when you look at promotions or you look at competition, it's how you view yourself. It's how other people view yourself, not how you view yourself.
Fair point.
That is a good point. Would you agree with that, Captain? Now,
I think for the most part, I do agree. I think finding the right workplace, like when we talk about promotions, sometimes a promotion isn't in your best interest, especially if it's not in a career environment or workplace that is really going to take care of you. And I've worked in tons of places where like they promote a really good work environment and it just becomes soured. Like it gets soured immediately. They don't care about you as a person. They just care about your numbers or like the work. They just really don't care about you as a person. You're just a pay stub. So there are a lot of jobs out there that do not have a healthy environment, do not have a healthy promotion structure, and like that's a system that you have to buy into to succeed in that area. Just saying that as a discussion. What I kind of understand a little bit about Phan's example here too is that one thing you'll also have to get used to, not to call out his manager at all, really, as well as Phan, but there's a lot of people put in a position of power who don't deserve it. There's a lot of people who put in a position of power who have zero experience managing. And there are very basic things as a cadet you'll understand where you'll be like, oh yeah, why would you do it this way? Because when I was in cadets, like I tried it and everyone that I've seen do the same strategy got burned every single time. Like, don't yell at your employee. Why don't you yell at your employee? Because it doesn't work, right? Number one, you're adults. Number two, you're just throwing your power against them. It's just going to create a poisonous work environment, so on and so forth. Okay. So as a cadet, you understand that. As adults, they don't understand whatsoever. When I look at what I do agree in Phan's case specifically is that you need to have the emotional intelligence as well as just the clarity to be able to pick your battles properly, right? And it's not about like, hey, I'm right and you're wrong. What I've learned from not being chief and all that is that I will prove that I'm right. I don't have to say anything. I will prove it. And especially in the cadet environment, I think that entire mentality is my entire officer career. Like, I don't have to describe why I'm right or why the way I'm teaching my cadets is right or why the way I approach leadership is right or how I interact. I can prove it. because one of the things I'm really proud of, and it's going to sound really insidious or really evil, is that if I spend the same amount of time with cadets, like we're in an office, right? We're all talking to the cadets. We all interact. I will come out on top in that conversation, in the sense that they will respect me more and they'll believe my stuff more than yours. And that is one of the attitudes I came out of cadets, because it's one of those things. I don't have to prove I'm better. I will work and I will be better. Therefore, I'm convincing.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like reevaluating Phan's opportunity, saying stuff is kind of really hard. Calling anybody out in person, but out of a safe space, is honestly never a good idea. But it doesn't mean your argument is wrong, but you can go about it in a different way. I think Captain Richards had a good comment here. So you can call someone out, just do it with respect. Is it necessary to embarrass them? Most will take feedback well if you think about the best approach. This doesn't always work, but definitely worth a try. I absolutely agree, right? And I'm pretty sure, like, just understanding Phan's reaction, like, he knows, like he said, he knows he messed up, because he's like, I could have went about it differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can I add on something that you said? Is that you said a lot of cadets know what it's like to work in a team. Like, somewhere within what you said is that one of the cool things about this program that a lot of us learn from, and a lot of us can gain from, is that while you're like, basically cadets is very similar to the workplace in the sense that you work in a team, you have a boss, that boss has another boss, and if you mess up, they're not going to be happy. And a lot of people don't have that kind of experience. A lot of people don't have the experience of pleasing others, working in a team, because when you're in high school, it's very individual. Like, yes, there's a few group projects, but even in group projects, don't your teachers hand out papers to, like, hey, go mark yourself and give each other a mark? Like, high school is very individual. You get your own mark, you get 98% whatever, that's your grade. But in the real world, a lot of times you work in a team and your personal grade doesn't matter. It's how your team scores. It's what your team does together. That's the important thing. And a lot of people don't realize how to work in a team, and that it's also not about yourself at the end of the day. You can be the best employee. If you have one crappy partner, you're going to get in trouble. You can be a great employee. If you have one crappy team, you're going down with the ship. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, it sucks. And a lot of people that, don't know this are going to learn the hard way. But one of the best things about cadets is that we like to, like, make a team environment, and if the team, if someone makes a mistake, we like to make sure that the whole team knows why. That's the greatest thing that you can learn in cadets.
Yeah. Although, like, taking that approach somewhere else needs to be filtered a little bit in, like, the way appropriate to your workplace, or environment. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that was a really nice, insightful discussion. To kind of wrap it up here, let's take a pivot and talk about what kind of opportunities are out there. And a lot of the times, opportunities don't naturally come to you. You might have to be proactive in actually seeking them. So I'd like to ask you guys, what kind of actions have you taken to seek opportunities? We'll start with Officer Cadet Phan again.
In cadets, or
your choice, in cadets or in life in general.
I'm gonna bring this and think about, basically, when you get promoted, you have that big sheet, and it tells you to list out what kind of things you do. And a lot of people come up to me, they're like, "Oh, I haven't ran a small event," or "What can I do? Like, every event's been taken already. Like, what else can I do?" And then I say to them, well, like, all the events that we run usually, yes, they could have been taken, but for opportunities, it's not necessarily like what opportunities are out there. It's what opportunities can you make what opportunities can you make to be out there. So that's what I like. Like when people come up to me, they're like, "Oh, everything's taken. I don't know what to be an NCOIC of. Why don't you try something new? Like, why don't you do something else?" Like, I know that there's a lot of events that we run at 615, and they're all really cool events, but we haven't done everything. We haven't done like basic like there's a lot of things we haven't done in 615 out yet. And if you want to get promoted, if you want to score that check mark in that box to be promoted, and everything else is taken, think outside of the box. You don't have to follow what other people have done. You know, like I said earlier, make a mistake, run an activity, have it fail. At least you tried and ran an activity and you know it won't work. A lot of these newer activities that come out, it's because people try and people they're willing to learn and they're willing to learn and they really want to not just make that check mark and they actually want to be like someone that's standing out.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And cadets is a really good environment to think outside of the box and actually try something new because, like we've mentioned, all these podcasts, it's a very safe environment to fail, and even if you do, there's just another chance to try again. So or try something new. So, thanks for your advice, Captain Leung. How about you?
I think my advice is very similar to Phan's. In it almost goes hand in hand with your earlier question. What can you make your like? What can you do to stand out? I think the best recipe to success in your career and cadet career or anywhere that you go is adding value. And the term adding value is always the same. It means to improve the space that you're in. So either you make your work more efficient, or you make it more fun, or you make it more interactive, or you make it better. You just make it better. That's all it is. And I think if you are able to take that attitude to any workplace, any cadet thing that you do, is like, hey, I know this is how. It's like when we were talking about instructing, right? The first time instructors teach a class, they typically teach a class how they were taught. And the way that they were taught was garbage. Like, you know it's garbage, but you have no idea how to do it any better. But does that need to be a fact? And the answer is no, right? You could be like, I don't want to teach it this way. Like, for example, I'm not a pilot. I suck at every aviation topic, but I'm a very good aviation instructor in terms of cadet lessons because I don't care about aviation. So because I don't like the material, I'm gonna make it as fun as possible without the material, right? An example is maybe I don't like my job, but I'm gonna find things in my job, like my mom's wisdom. If I'm bored, don't be bored. Make it a place where you're comfortable. Make it put your stamp on it, right? If you can add value to the space, you will be set apart, and that's where the opportunity. Find something new, do it different, do it better.
And that, like you said, it applies to cadets and very much so in the real world too. So, something that I wanted to talk about is a little bit about what you can do to put yourself out there. So this is kind of my answer is more specific than the advice we heard from Captain Young and Officer Cadet Phan. But something I did recently was I called up. So, like I mentioned earlier, I'm maybe into physiotherapy as a future career. So what I did was I actually called up like a bunch of clinics and emailed them asking if they would accept me as a volunteer slash shadower. And one out of all of the places I emailed, one clinic actually replied, and I had the chance to meet so many more people who were in that field, and they were more than happy to bring me through like their daily work and giving me advice on what to do during my university years and stuff like that. So I think another good thing to do is to be proactive and don't be afraid to reach out to people, maybe even strangers out there for opportunities. So, yeah,
that advice about don't talk to strangers. You can talk to strangers professionally, and that will make you a better, that will get you further ahead.
Yeah. So that pretty much sums up our podcast. It's 7:06. We hit more than an hour. But right now, if you have any questions or any comments you'd like to share with us, go ahead and type that into the chat box. And if if we can answer them, we'll answer them before we end our podcast. Other
Yeah.
than that, do we have any closing comments?
Ooh.
Oh,
I'll let you start,
sorry.
sir.
I think from everything about values that we've talked about, I think the big thing that I would really, really think that you can try to push from where you are at anywhere you are is my last example of adding value. It was one of the most important lessons I learned as a cadet, as an instructor, and in the workplace is that if you want to set yourself apart, if you want to be successful, you need to make everything better in the slightest way or in the biggest way. And the more times that you have that entrepreneurial mindset to not be satisfied with what things are and to make it better, that's adding value. I actually have this, it bleeds into when we talk about promotions and things. One of the questions I typically ask warrants or people who are looking to be warrants, what they're like, what do you think a warrant does? And my answer to that, even as a cadet, it has not changed, is a job of a warrant is to look at something and not be satisfied. If you can do that, you have a mind of a warrant and you have a mind of a contributing member of society. However, if you don't have that, you are not online, and therefore you can't contribute to this. And so add value. The more you work at it, the more you think about it, the better you'll be.
Good point. Officer Cadet Phan?
I think the last thing or the closing thing that I'll really say is figure out what you really enjoy, figure out why you're still here in cadets, and have that really shape you into who you are. Like Captain Leung said earlier, this whole team that we have of adults and also warrants, we're all very, very different. Like me and Captain Leung, we do not have the same like lifestyle, and we do not have the same background. And something really interesting about that is that because we have different opinions, and because of like all these adults that have different opinions, we have so much different insight to basically put into your life. So, don't be afraid to talk to us, because at the end of the day, even though we're adults, even though we're your, quote unquote, like your bosses or your supervisors or whatever you want to say, we are still people at the end of the day. Like, strip down the uniform, strip down the rank. I am a person. We're all people, and we really just want to help you at the end of the day. Like most people, like I would say, like a majority of people in life, they're pretty genuine people that want to help you. Like Warren Chan said earlier, find like send random emails out, talk to people, and don't be embarrassed or ashamed to ask for help, because the people that don't ask for help and the people that think they're the best, usually they're the ones that turn out not the best. And the ones that are asking for help and the ones that are staying humble, they usually succeed the most, because at the end of the day, like everyone in cadets, you're still young, you're still trying to learn, and you're going to make mistakes. And we expect that. We expect you to learn, we expect you to make these mistakes, but we also expect you to grow from these mistakes. So take the initiative, stand out there. We talked a lot about like stepping out of your comfort zone. We talked a lot about how do you stand out? Try your best to stand out, and you'll be able to see opportunities basically fly at you when you try these things.
I think a really good point you brought up is to stay humble and to ask questions. I think those two things like can really propel you further than like what you may think. And especially against the people who think they're simply the best, But I think my final comment would be to again find what is important to you, try different things, find your values, and then go out there and um, find opportunities to then embody those values, and that way you'll actually feel you can add value to what you're doing. And if those opportunities aren't out there, make them for yourself. Go seek opportunities and ask for help from the people around you.
Very good point.
So yeah.
I do
That's
want to bring up one last comment that we got from Lieutenant Novak, and it goes with pretty much everything that we've been saying. But He says an increased level of personal empathy for others will elevate the performance of your team and in turn yourself. Um, Basically, if you value human interaction and you can treat a person as a person, not just a value, not just a rank, not just an opportunity. People like talking to real people, and the more empathetic you are to their situation, how they see it, the more you'll grow and be able to navigate your day-to-day situations to get that opportunity. The big thing is you're really what you're the underlying message that, like, from all three of our messages, it's really up to you to take that opportunity. So you need to have real initiative. No one's gonna kick you to go beyond us saying, like, hey, you got to do it, right? If you're not doing it, you're losing out, and other people will outpace 100%. They'll leave you in the dust, and they won't.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I'm going to say is that when we talk about standing out and when we talk about like getting out there, if you're not going to care, if you don't look like you care, unfortunately, I'm not going to try to help you. Like, you have to look like you care, and you have to actually be a little more like, you have to be somewhat genuine to wanting to learn, for me at least, to want to help who you are, because I'm not going to waste my time on someone who doesn't care. So stand out there, try your best. And when we do, call you out, or when we do say something that you've made a mistake on, do not take it personally. Especially when you're like, I know when you're like younger, you get yelled at or whatever. A lot of times it's really scary. Don't take it personally, because if we take the time out to like point out a mistake, or if we take out the time to say something that you've done wrong, whether that be, as an instructor, as a leader, or as a person who's running an event, it means that we've genuinely cared enough to want you to be better, so that we're, telling you that you're making this mistake. So stay humble.
Yeah. That's a good point, because that actually reminded me of a lot of the times, my generation at least, we hear it a lot now. It's to not just do it to put it on your resume. So I know people, my friends, they actually go and join like all the big school clubs, but do they actually care about the value that the club adds into the community, or what the club is doing? Like, is the club's goal important to them? And a lot of the times, the answer is no. They don't care about what the club is doing. They just care about maybe the position they get in the club. But really good point, Officer Cadet Phan, is to know what you find important and do those things, and don't do the things you don't care about. Yeah.
Good points.
Any more questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Man, an
Okay,
hour
so
really flies by pretty quickly.
Yeah, it really does.
yeah,
So I'm gonna
we only
say,
go under an hour.
yeah, and hey, we kept it pretty good. So thank you, Chan. I know that myself and Fan like to talk, so thank you for reeling us in. Especially me, I love to talk. In saying that, I want to thank all of our viewers for joining in today. If you didn't get your question asked, once again, a lot of the officers, a lot of the warrants, and a lot of your friends and NCOs are there to help. So just reach out. You'd be surprised at what type of answers you'll get and what support you. I'm going to play us out to our skills next week's skills series. I'm not too sure what it is. Honestly, we'll make it up. We have some credits to do. Our presentation
Yes.
template, all that type of stuff. Check it out. I'm gonna play some good music to play us out to, and yeah, I'm gonna say goodbye. See you guys.
You have some really good music.
Thanks for tuning in.